Have you ever, like, watched a foreign film and
Right.
wished you could just slip into that world,
Yeah.
effortlessly understanding, like, all the jokes and the slang and just
Yeah.
all the cultural nuances?
Right.
It's like there's this whole layer of communication we're missing out on.
For sure.
Well, you sent us some research on this surprising tool that might be able to help bridge that gap, and it's graphic novels.
Interesting.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into how these visual stories
Okay.
could actually be the key to unlocking fluency, especially for those learning English as a foreign language.
It's funny because we often think of fluency as just like vocabulary and grammar,
Right.
but there's this whole other dimension to it,
Yeah.
like cultural fluency,
Oh, I like that.
being able to truly like get the humor,
Yeah.
the references, the like unspoken rules of communication.
That's so true. And
Yeah.
that's where graphic novels come in.
That's where they come in.
Okay. I'm intrigued. I have to admit, I always kind of thought of them as just fun entertainment.
Oh, they absolutely are fun.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, a huge part of why they're so effective.
Okay.
But think about it, like graphic novels combine words with visual storytelling.
Right.
And researchers have actually found that learners who were exposed to graphic novels picked up on like 20% more colloquialisms
Wow. Wow.
than those who were just using traditional texts.
That's a big difference.
It is a big difference. Those little slang words and phrases
Right.
that make you sound like a native speaker.
Yeah, so it's like they're getting this crash course in
Yes.
real-world English, not just textbook language.
Exactly.
Okay.
And because the visuals provide so much context, it makes those new words so much easier to remember.
Right.
It's like having this built-in visual dictionary.
That makes a lot of sense
Yeah.
because it's not just seeing the word ominous. It's like
Right.
seeing those storm clouds gathering or, the character's worried expression, and it all kind of clicks together.
It all clicks together.
Yeah.
And this visual element goes beyond just vocabulary.
Okay.
It actually impacts how we process grammar, too.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, for example,
Okay.
think about the past perfect tense, something that learners often struggle with
Right.
in a graphic novel.
Uh-huh.
You're actually seeing those actions unfold
Yeah.
panel by panel,
Panel by panel.
making that concept of like an action completed before another past action
Right.
much more intuitive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So instead of just memorizing a grammar rule,
Yeah,
you're seeing it visually play out.
exactly.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, so does this visual style also affect how we kind of absorb the rhythm and flow of a language?
Oh, it absolutely does.
Okay.
The way that the panels are laid out,
Right.
the pacing of the dialogue,
Yeah.
even just the use of sound effects,
Yeah.
it all contributes to this overall rhythm of the story. It's almost like a musical score.
And so wouldn't that then help with things like intonation and pronunciation?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Making
yeah.
you like a more confident speaker overall.
Yeah, because you're getting
Yeah.
more comfortable with the
Yes.
the musicality of it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Reading a graphic novel out loud,
Mm-hmm.
trying out different voices for the characters,
Yeah.
really getting into the drama of it all.
Yeah.
It's such a fantastic way to practice those subtle nuances of spoken English.
That can be hard to master from a textbook.
Yes, very hard
Yeah.
to master from a textbook.
Okay, so I can see how getting into character like that
Right.
would make you less self-conscious
Yes,
and more focused on just expressing yourself naturally.
totally.
It
Yeah.
kind of takes the pressure off a little bit.
It takes the pressure off.
Yeah.
And this ties into another key benefit
Okay.
of graphic novels.
Uh-huh.
They really encourage critical thinking, which is crucial for being a clear and persuasive communicator.
Okay. I wouldn't have immediately connected graphic novels with critical thinking.
Right. How so?
I mean, they're not just about pretty pictures.
Right.
Think about it. You're analyzing characters' motivations.
Uh-huh.
You're predicting plot twists.
Yeah.
You're piecing together information
Right.
from both the text and the visuals.
And the visual.
These are all mental skills
Uh.
that you need to express yourself effectively
Right.
in any language.
That's true.
You're essentially training your brain
Yeah.
to think critically and make connections.
Okay. I'm starting to see how this all fits together.
Good.
But I have to ask,
Yeah.
are there any potential downsides
Uh-huh.
to using graphic novels for language learning?
I think it's important to acknowledge that
Okay.
graphic novels aren't like a magic solution.
Yeah. Yeah.
For some learners, the visual element might actually be a distraction,
Okay.
or they might find the vocabulary.
Or the cultural references challenging.
Right.
But remember, it's a journey, not a race.
Yeah.
The key is to choose material that's engaging and appropriate for your level.
So start with something you're genuinely interested in,
Absolutely.
not just something you think you should read.
Exactly.
Okay.
Passion is key.
Got it.
And if you encounter a word or a phrase
Yeah.
that you don't understand,
Mm-hmm.
don't be afraid to look it up.
Yeah.
There are no language police
I know, it's so true.
waiting to judge you
That's a relief.
for using a dictionary.
So we've established that graphic novels can boost vocabulary, grammar, even pronunciation.
Yep.
But earlier you mentioned this idea of cultural fluency.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Yes.
How do graphic novels help us bridge that gap?
What's fascinating is that graphic novels are often like a reflection of the culture they come from.
Okay.
You know, the art style, the
Yes.
dialogue,
Yeah.
the humor.
Right.
It all provides this window into a particular society's values,
Yeah.
norms,
Okay.
even their anxieties.
That's interesting. I never thought of it that way.
Yeah.
But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like getting a glimpse into the cultural context
Well,
behind
sure.
the language.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's what makes communication truly effective.
Yeah.
You're not just knowing the words,
Uh-huh.
you're understanding the cultural cues,
Right.
the unspoken rules.
Yeah.
And that's where graphic novels can be particularly powerful.
Okay. I'm ready to hear more about this.
Okay.
I am very intrigued.
All right.
Let's dive into that more
Okay.
after a quick break.
Sounds good.
All right. I am ready to dive deeper into this idea of graphic novels as cultural portals.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's about understanding those unspoken rules,
Right.
those cultural nuances that go beyond
Yes.
just textbook knowledge.
It is fascinating, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, think about how humor works in different cultures. You know, a joke that lands perfectly in one language
Right.
might fall completely flat in another.
Totally.
Their graphic novels, with their blend of like visual and textual cues,
Uh-huh.
can really help us decode those subtle differences.
So it's not just about understanding the words of a joke.
No.
It's about understanding the cultural context
Yes.
that makes it funny.
Exactly.
Okay.
You know, you're picking up on social cues,
Right.
body language,
Uh-huh.
even historical references
Wow.
that might be embedded in the humor.
Okay.
It's a much richer learning experience
Yeah.
than just memorizing vocabulary lists.
So how would you recommend actually using graphic novels
Well,
to explore different cultures?
Oh.
What are some practical steps
Yeah.
that learners can take?
one powerful approach is to choose graphic novels
Okay.
that are set in different parts of the world.
Okay.
So if you're learning English,
Uh-huh.
don't just stick to stories
Right.
that are set in like the US or the UK.
Right.
You know, explore graphic novels from Canada, Australia, India, Nigeria.
Okay.
The possibilities are kind of endless.
That's such a good point.
Yeah.
I can see how reading a graphic novel set in, say, Mumbai
Right.
could give you a much more immersive understanding of
Okay.
Indian culture
Yes,
than just reading about it in a textbook.
for sure. You're experiencing the culture through the eyes of the characters.
Yeah.
You're seeing how they interact with each other,
Right.
how they navigate social situations,
Mm-hmm.
how they use language in everyday life.
It's like a virtual exchange program,
Yes.
but you get to stay in your pajamas.
Exactly.
Okay. Are there any other ways to make this cultural exploration more interactive?
Here's an idea.
Okay.
What if you paired reading a graphic novel
Uh-huh.
with watching a film or a TV show from the same culture?
Oh, interesting.
So you can compare and
That's
contrast
subverting.
the storytelling styles,
Yeah.
the dialogue, even the way characters are portrayed.
That's It's like creating your own cultural immersion course
Right.
tailored to your own interests.
Exactly.
You could pick a theme like coming-of-age stories
Uh-huh.
and explore how that theme is expressed
Right.
across different cultures.
Yes.
Through these different mediums.
I love that.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to get creative.
Okay.
You could even create like a visual journal, sketching scenes from the graphic novel,
Right.
jotting down interesting phrases,
Yeah.
maybe even try to write your own little comic strip,
Oh, fun.
inspired by what you've learned.
That sounds so much more engaging than like filling out worksheets.
I know, right?
Okay. Okay. I am convinced graphic
Yes.
novels can be these powerful tools
Uh-huh.
for cultural understanding.
Yes.
But what about the language learning aspect?
Okay.
How can we make sure we're also improving our English fluency
Yeah.
along the way?
One strategy is to pay close attention to the dialogue.
Okay.
Graphic novels often use a more colloquial style of language,
Mm.
with slang and idioms and regional dialects.
Right.
It's a great way to learn how real people speak.
Yeah.
not just how textbooks say we should speak.
It's like eavesdropping on everyday conversations.
Yes.
But in a fun visual format.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to challenge yourself.
Okay.
If you're a more advanced learner, try reading a graphic novel that's slightly above your current level.
Okay.
You might need to look up more words.
Right.
But that struggle is actually beneficial.
I see.
It forces you to engage with the language more deeply.
It's like weightlifting for your brain.
It is.
Okay. We've talked a lot about like individual learning.
Uh-huh.
But I'm curious about how graphic novels could be used in a classroom setting.
Oh, the possibilities are endless.
Okay.
Teachers could use graphic novels as springboards for discussions, debates, creative writing prompts, even role-playing activities.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah, imagine a classroom buzzing with students.
I love it.
Acting out scenes from a graphic novel.
Yeah.
Debating ethical dilemmas faced by the characters. Or even creating their own spin-off stories.
It's like taking the best parts of literature class and drama class and combining them into this one super engaging experience.
I love it.
What about specific language skills? How can graphic novels help with things like listening comprehension and pronunciation?
Yeah, we've talked about reading aloud. But another fun activity could be creating audio recordings of scenes from the graphic novel.
Interesting.
Students could even try different accents or dialects.
Oh, that's fun.
To make it more challenging.
I love that.
Yeah.
They could even share their recordings with classmates.
Right.
Or post them online to get feedback.
Exactly.
And practice speaking in a more authentic context.
Yes.
It's like creating their own little podcast episodes.
Exactly. And it takes the pressure off.
Right.
Because they're focusing on conveying the emotions and intentions of the characters rather than just worrying about perfect grammar or pronunciation.
Right, because they're embodying someone else.
Yes.
This has been so insightful. I feel like I'm looking at graphic novels with a whole new level of appreciation.
I'm glad.
Before we move on to your specific recommendations, I'd love to touch on one more aspect. This power of visual literacy.
Yes.
Earlier, you mentioned that graphic novels help us develop this skill.
They do.
Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, visual literacy is about more than just seeing images. It's about understanding how those images work together with the text to create meaning.
Right.
It's about noticing the artist's choices.
Right.
The way they use color composition. Even the gutters between the panels.
Yeah.
To evoke emotions or build suspense.
Or
emphasize key points.
So it's like learning a whole new language.
It is.
But instead of words, it's images.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And just like learning any language, it takes practice.
Right.
The more you pay attention to those visual elements of graphic novels, the more you'll start to see those same techniques being used in other forms of media like films, advertising, even social media posts.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's a skill that's relevant far beyond just the realm of graphic novels.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In today's visually saturated world, being able to decode those visual messages is becoming increasingly important.
That's a really good point.
And graphic novels offer just this fantastic training ground for developing those skills.
Okay. I'm eager to hear your recommendations.
Okay.
For graphic novels that are particularly well-suited for language learners and cultural explorers.
All right, let's do it.
Okay. My to-be-read pile is about to reach, dangerous heights. Because I'm already hooked on this idea of graphic novels as these language and culture boosters.
Yeah.
So let's get to the good stuff.
Yeah.
What are some specific titles that you would recommend?
I'm happy to share some favorites.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that the best choice really depends on the learner's interests and their level.
Of course.
So for someone who's just dipping their toes into the world of graphic novels, Raina Telgemeier's Smile is a fantastic starting point.
Okay.
It's a coming-of-age story set in middle school.
Yeah.
So the language is really relatable.
Okay.
And the visuals are engaging without being overwhelming.
I've heard so many great things about her work.
Yeah, she's fantastic.
And it just seems like graphic novels are particularly good at capturing those kind of universal adolescent experiences in a way that resonates across cultures.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Smile is a great example of that.
Okay.
It deals with themes of friendship, self-esteem fitting in, emotions that anyone can relate to,
yeah,
regardless of their background.
That's true.
Now, if someone's looking for something a bit more challenging,
Okay.
with richer vocabulary and more complex themes, I would recommend American-Born Chinese
Okay.
by Jean Lewin Yang.
I've been meaning to read that one.
Oh, it's so good.
I've heard it beautifully blends
It does.
Chinese folklore with a contemporary coming-of-age story.
It's truly a masterpiece.
Wow.
And because it weaves together these different cultural threads,
Yeah.
it can spark some really interesting conversations about identity and belonging
Okay.
and the immigrant experience.
Great.
So it's a great pick for learners who are ready to kind of grapple with more nuanced language and themes.
So we've got a great option for beginners and something more challenging for maybe like intermediate learners.
Right.
What about folks who are really into history? Are there any graphic novels that can like transport them back in time?
You can't go wrong with Art Spiegelman's Maus. It's a Pulitzer Prize-winning graphic novel.
Wow.
That tells the story of the author's father, a Holocaust survivor.
Wow.
The artwork is stark and powerful.
Okay.
And the story is both deeply personal and historically significant.
I've heard it's a really moving and impactful read.
It is.
Even for people who aren't usually drawn to historical fiction.
Yes.
And I think what's so fascinating is how graphic novels can make those historical events feel so immediate and personal.
Exactly. You're not just reading about facts and figures.
Right.
You're experiencing history through the eyes of the characters. You're seeing their struggles, their triumphs, their humanity.
Right.
It's a very different kind of learning experience.
Okay, one last category before we wrap up. What about recommendations?
Yeah.
For the sci-fi and fantasy fans out there.
Okay, if you're looking for an epic space adventure with stunning artwork and complex characters, I highly recommend Saga by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples.
All right.
It's a sprawling story with multiple storylines.
Oh, okay.
And this unique blend of humor, action, and heart.
Oh, that one sounds right up my alley.
Yeah.
I love how graphic novels can create these immersive worlds.
Yes.
That you can just get lost in.
It's true. They have this amazing ability
to
transport you to different times, different places, even different dimensions.
Yeah.
And that's part of what makes them such powerful tools for this language and cultural exploration.
I keep coming back to this idea that graphic novels
Yeah.
aren't just about entertainment or even just language learning.
Right.
They're about expanding our understanding of the world and ourselves.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
By stepping into the shoes of these characters from different cultures, different backgrounds, different walks of life, we gain empathy. We challenge our assumptions.
Right.
And ultimately, we become more well-rounded human beings.
And isn't that what learning is all about?
I think so.
It's not just about accumulating knowledge.
Right.
It's about using that knowledge to connect with others, to build bridges, to make the world a more understanding and compassionate place.
Beautifully said.
Yeah.
So to our listener, I say this.
Okay.
Don't underestimate the power of a graphic novel.
That's good advice.
It might just be the key to unlocking this whole new world of understanding.
Yeah.
Both for yourself and for the diverse tapestry of cultures that make up our planet.
What a fantastic note to end on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking us on this deep dive.
You're welcome.
Into the world of graphic novel.
My pleasure.
I think we've all come away with this new appreciation
I hope so.
for this art form and its potential to enrich our lives in so many ways.
Me too.
Until next time, happy reading.